Parliament with questions, so I give the floor to MP Westcott Williams.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady, and through you, my thanks to the Minister for her presentation and addressing the concerns in this report of the General Audit Chamber. Madam Chair Lady, the Minister of Finance has once again highlighted the, to use her words, limitations that currently prevent a good tax data collection. The minister responded to my question regarding this matter. So my question regarding data in the budget meeting, and again highlighted in this meeting the limitations. And thus my question in this context to the minister is if there is anything that can be done in order to get this overall generalized tax data in terms of how the response is in what different taxes, because I believe that having that type of generalized information would be helpful as we review and discuss changes to the tax system. For Parliament, that information would be helpful in that discussion. Are some of the taxes based on what we're seeing, based on what we're receiving, are those the taxes that we need to review, change, eliminate, whatever the case may be? So the minister had responded, Madam Chair Lady, that information, generalized information, tax information, would have to be attained by a third party. So in connection therewith, my question is, can that type of general tax information, the ongoing discussions about how many persons actually are in the tax system, how many persons are paying, so that kind of general information. And thus my question is not necessarily to be answered today, but I would appreciate receiving the answers in writing, if possible. So what can be done, given those limitations, to still be able to extract generalized tax information in moving forward with whatever tax changes or tax system changes are anticipated? Secondly, the minister has indicated in previous meetings regarding tax and tax amendments and tax changes that there is one or maybe more draft ordinances in process with respect to taxes. And so my question is, given the fact that the website of the Council of Advice is under construction, I believe it still is, and thus it is not possible to see which legislation is at the Council of Advice, has been handled, etc. So my question to the minister is, through you, Madam Chair Lady, if the status of the draft ordinances with respect to taxes can be given. So, for example, which are at the Council of Advice, if any, which are back at government, if they are in that state, and if we could just get an overview of that. Again, I want to thank the minister for her responses to this particular report from the General Audit Chamber. And I ask the minister to consider with the General Audit Chamber this particular response, albeit it's an updated response, but in order to get out of the way that we have these reports and no response is being given. Again, I know there have been subsequent reports, but if the minister in this particular case with the General Audit Chamber can say, these are my responses, now let's work forward, and we can close that off, and to continue as much as possible to respond where it is asked to reports of the General Audit Chamber. Nothing I I wouldn't use the word hate, but there's nothing I don't like as much as having the Parliament be told, you know, you have these reports and you have done nothing with it. And I don't like it for the government either. So, and if it's not possible to respond to all of the issues in the report, then let that be stated. But let us use the reports of these high councils of state in a productive way. So if the minister can, on this report, kind of synchronize with the General Audit Chamber, that we get it out of the way. These are my answers. This is what I'm doing. Next report up. I take the Minister of Finance, Madam Chair Lady, has made some commitments in terms of some of the things to be done. And given that Parliament is going in the direction of holding ministers to their word with respect to things that are going to be done, the so-called commitments by ministers, if there is some type of a timeline that can be given, a realistic timeline, because I know we all would like these changes and amendments to the tax system to be done like yesterday, but we know that's not feasible. So if we can get a kind of timeline, also taking into consideration the improvements / reform that are being conducted under the auspices of the TWO, so the Landspaket. And Madam Chair Lady, I don't know through you if the minister is aware of the comments from many members of the second chamber who also receives the reports from the TWO, and they are not, to use a Dutch phrase, te spreken in connection with the most recent way of reporting from the TWO. It's nice. I have seen it. I don't know if Parliament got it, but I have definitely seen the latest reports. It's nice in terms of visuality. But, and I want to agree somewhat with those members of the second chamber who believe that it is not giving you the essence of where things stand with these different projects as part of the Landspaket. In fact, some of the members of the second chamber suggested that the TWO and the government of St. Martin go back to the previous way of reporting. But in any case, I think what I would like to see from the reporting is a realistic timeline with respect to the priorities of the government of St. Martin. So the elements of tax reform that are important for the Minister of Finance and the government of St. Martin, let those things be highlighted, be kind of pulled out of the process of the TWO and given priority. So if somehow that can be worked out, I know it's going good and we have all of these themes and reports, but the priorities of government should again be stressed with the organization of the TWO. And then, Madam Chair Lady, I happen to have been in a virtual conference yesterday in which a business executive of Aruba giving his take on economic developments, etc., on Aruba, made a very interesting comment with respect to an item that on St. Martin too has generated a lot of discussion with respect to taxes and tax system, and that is the tax on tips. The tax on tips. And the comment made that caught my attention in this regard was that while, because it applies for St. Martin too, many persons are on the minimum wage level, not taxing tips, give these persons a little extra financial impulse and, you know, and contribute to basically elevating that social issue in terms of the minimum wage vis-a-vis the cost of living on St. Martin. So I want to specifically, again, bring this matter of taxing tips on St. Martin to the attention of the Minister of Finance. And if after reviewing, researching, whatever the case may be, I can get the minister's take on this matter, while my suggestion is that it be looked at like it is on Aruba and not be taxed, and that the changes in order to make that possible, that those be considered. Madam Chair, Lady, those are my 5 points, and I'm being very specific in terms of what I'm asking, and not so much what I'm saying, but what I'm asking of the minister, because as I said, it contributes to the efficiency of Parliament if after having these discussions and deliberations, the ministers can be clear on what they're telling Parliament they will do, so that we can keep the finger on the pulse where those matters are concerned. Madam Chair, Lady, I want to thank you once again.
Thank you very much, MP Westcott Williams. I also wanted to just also make a point of something that you said. When we start these meetings, we have these guidelines and we make reference to the documents that we are going to be discussing here today. And I should have added it on in the beginning, but for those persons in publicly viewing this, and even for my colleagues, just as a reminder, all of the reports of the General Audit Chamber are available online. They are public. And MP Westcott also made a note about a response, a warranted response, because this report that we have, for those that would like to go online and look it up, when you go to the General Audit Chamber website, you just search audit into the process of ex officio tax assessments. And the comment that MP Westcott made was about page 10, which is talking about the fact that always in these General Audit Chamber reports, they always say whether or not they received a response. Now, this report is from April 2023 that we're finally discussing. So I really actually appreciate the fact that we are having this meeting here today at all. But I also made note of the fact that the Minister of Finance talks about, certain confidentiality, that certain things can't be shared in the sense of testing, of coming into test samples, of tax information. But the response will go a long way in making sure that we actually all seamlessly work together and use the advice that we get from one entity, one council, to help us sort of improve or maybe say, no, this is not really the case, but the communication clarifies any confusion that we have and any issues that we have in this. So I really want to say I appreciate the fact that MP Westcott brought it up, because I actually had it as a question to the minister of whether or not since April 2023, we have had a change in administration, but whether or not a response was provided to them, because then we have to deal with the same thing all the time. As MP Westcott Williams said, when we come to discuss these, whether it's 2 months or a year or 2 years later, we have it said to us, no one responded, and it's not through any intentional lack of response. It's just sometimes things change and people get busy, but this is a very, very valid point that MP Westcott brought up, so thank you for that. And I would just ask your indulgence if we can take a 5-minute break, please. Thank you so much. So we adjourn for 5 minutes.